This captivating video will lead you on a deeply mind-bending adventure as it explores some of the most mind-boggling and mind-warping paradoxes to be discovered within both the realms of science and philosophy, which bewilder and befuddle our comprehension and perception of what precisely defines reality. We will explore compelling cases such as the renowned Grandfather Paradox, which raises beguiling questions around causality, and the Ship of Theseus, which sets us the challenge of asking us questions about change and identity. These compelling paradoxes appear to defy the principles of logic and basically stretch human understanding to new heights. Prepare for a thrilling experience as we explore deep within this complex realm of paradoxes that challenge you to question all that you think you know regarding time, existence, and even the very fabric of reality itself. Throughout the vast expanse of history, numerous thinkers, great scientists, and great philosophers have been engaged in a relentless struggle with paradoxes, those brain-twisting puzzles that not only contradict our day-to-day logic, but also question our very grasp of the complex nature of reality. These intriguing paradoxes appear to defy the rules we have established for the world we experience, and they make us question everything we believe we know to be true. On today's quest, we will travel through some of the most perplexing and thought-provoking paradoxes that will get you questioning the very nature and essence of existence itself. So, are you prepared to embark on this journey into the mysterious unknown? 1. The fascinating idea called the Grandfather Paradox, perhaps one of the most famous and well-debated paradoxes that have fascinated philosophers and scientists alike, is referred to as the Grandfather Paradox. This thought-provoking paradox poses important questions about the very logic and possibility of time traveling itself. Imagine a situation where you travel back in time to a time far before your own, with the aim of preventing your own grandfather from ever meeting your grandmother. If you were able to accomplish this task, the result would be that your parent would never be born into this world, which inherently means that you yourself would never have existed, thus rendering it impossible for you to have traveled back in time in the first place. However, this calls into question the rather sinister question of, if you never existed yourself, how is it remotely possible for you to have interfered with your own grandfather so that he would never get to develop a relationship with your grandmother? This forms a confusing paradox that appears to contradict the very rules and principles of time itself, leaving many questioning the depth and possibilities of time travel. 2. The Ship of Theseus Paradox. The Ship of Theseus is an ancient philosophical thought experiment that deeply questions the traditional understanding of identity over time. The basic question is, if each and every part of a ship is replaced one by one, piece by piece, over a long period of time, at what exact moment does it stop being identified as the very same ship? Can we still call it the Ship of Theseus, or has it become something entirely new and different in its own right? This paradox raises profound questions about the defining features that make something genuinely itself, and challenges us to question whether the nature of identity is necessarily tied to its physical parts, or whether it is founded on something much more abstract and ephemeral. 3. The Barber Paradox. Barber Paradox comes in the form of an interesting self-referential puzzle that revolves around a specific barber. This barber has a peculiar occupation. He shaves all the men in town who do not take it upon themselves to shave, but he makes it a strict rule that he does not shave anyone else except this particular group. The paradox raises an interesting question: who is tasked with shaving the barber himself? Now, if we take the situation where the barber actually shaves himself, it creates a logical contradiction, because, by the given rule, he should not be shaving himself whatsoever. On the other hand, if we assume the stance that the barber does not shave himself, then based on the same rule, he would be obligated to shave himself. This interesting scenario creates a logical contradiction that seems impossible to solve, and we are left wondering about the implications of such a paradox. 4. The liar paradox. Liar paradox is a fascinating assertion that seems to have a contradiction embedded in it. For example, when a person says, "This statement is false," we are left to question whether the statement can be classified as true or false. If we assume the statement to be true, then it means that it actually has to be false. However, on the contrary, if we deduce that it is false, it thereby means that it has to be true. This paradox is a puzzle that has fascinated and confused philosophers for centuries, thus highlighting the very limitations that exist in the areas of language and logic. 5. The two envelopes paradox. The two envelopes paradox presents a very intriguing scenario that centers on a particular choice you must make. You are presented with two envelopes, and observe that one of them contains an amount of money exactly twice the amount contained in the other envelope. Having made your selection and picked one envelope, you begin to question a question that can give you pause. What if, in making my selection, I chose the wrong envelope? The paradox is in the muddled nature of the scenario, as it would appear that, no matter how you approach the problem or proceed with the reasoning involved, switching envelopes seems to show that you will always achieve a better outcome by doing so. This discovery raises significant questions, especially given that it is directly opposite to the fundamental principles of probability theory, which must be applied to such decisions. 6. The Bootstrap Paradox. The Bootstrap Paradox is a mind-bending riddle in which an object or piece of information exists without ever having been created. Here's an example. Imagine that you go back in time and give Shakespeare a copy of his own works. He copies them out and they reach the future, where you take them and go back in time again with the books. Who originally authored Shakespeare's works? According to this paradox, the suggestion is that things can exist without any point of origin. 7. The Paradox of the Ravens. The Paradox of the Ravens is a fascinating and puzzling philosophical challenge with specific applicability to the discipline of confirmation theory. Essentially, it implies that if we accept the premise that ravens are black, then experiencing or observing a black raven tends to verify that particular theory regarding ravens. But this leads us to the paradoxical point. If you do observe a green apple, you are also, in some way, verifying the proposition that all ravens are black. This is because a green apple, in not being a raven anyway, still acts to support the proposition about the color of ravens. This apparently ridiculous and illogical conclusion puts our understanding to the test and challenges the normal methods we adopt to gathering evidence to verify a hypothesis. 8. The Sorites Paradox. Paradox of the heap. The Sorites paradox, or the paradox of the heap, is a curious one to ask. At what exact point does a heap of sand cease to be a heap when you slowly remove one grain at a time from it? As you continue removing grains of sand one at a time, at what exact moment does it cease to be a heap? This intriguing paradox is helpful for questioning and examining the boundaries that exist between concepts which may at first sight appear to be distinct and well-defined, yet, upon further examination, prove to be very difficult and complex to define in a precise manner. 9. The Twin Paradox. The Twin Paradox is a famous and captivating thought experiment that falls within the scope of physics, describing an interesting situation whereby one twin goes on an incredible journey to the far reaches of outer space, moving at near light speeds, while their sibling stays behind on Earth, living out the passage of time in a more traditional way. When, after the traveling twins return from their intergalactic exploit, the shocking surprise is revealed, they discover that they are much younger in years relative to the twin who preferred to stay on our planet. This baffling paradox stems from the reality that time plays tricks for objects moving at such high speeds, ultimately contradicting and opposing our daily notion of both time itself and the aging process with which we are generally familiar. 10. The Fermi Paradox. The Fermi Paradox is an interesting paradox that occurs from the extremely high likelihood of the prevalence of extraterrestrial life in the vast universe, which is so starkly contrasted by the dramatic lack of any concrete evidence to corroborate the existence of such life forms. With billions and billions of stars spread all over our galaxy alone, it seems highly likely that intelligent civilizations with the ability to communicate and interact should indeed exist somewhere in the universe. Yet, in spite of decades of sincere searching and thorough investigation by researchers and scientists, we have so far failed to find any conclusive evidence or hints of extraterrestrial life. This brings up some very deep questions. Where is everybody? What could possibly be the cause of their silence? and why have they not contacted us? Conclusion: these compelling paradoxes are sobering reminders of the very limits inherent within our knowledge, and call upon us to fundamentally challenge the nature and essence of reality itself. Whether such perplexing phenomena fall within the domain of time, the framework of logic, or the enormity of space, paradoxes invite us to confront the odd, the puzzling, and the finally unexplainable aspects of our reality. Which specific paradox, of all the rest, has led you to question the nature of reality more profoundly than another? We'd love to read your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, be sure to support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing for more interesting and mind-bending stories guaranteed to make you reconsider everything. Take care and see you in the next videos.